What did he do?
He got a little bit upset.
What did he do on January 6th?
He got a little bit upset and used his words.
What words did he say, though?
The words that you said earlier.
Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
And then what happened after that?
So how were his words actually contributing to that?
Because I think that for me, him being able to just...
So something interesting today happened, and that is Lara Trump went to the Breakfast Club and blew up their argument to pieces, okay? Because we know how they feel about Trump and how they buy into the propaganda, and how she responded left them speechless. So let's start with the biggest claim against Trump is that everybody accuses him of being a racist, which we all know is not true, but here we go.
You know, this is a man who, as I said in the beginning, was beloved by so many people in this country. And he was friends with everybody.
A lot of celebrities.
Jesse Jackson, by the way.
Please
his Rainbow
don't do
Coalition.
That. He had black friends. That's not going to work out.
No. He let them stay rent-free in one of his buildings, the Rainbow Coalition, because he felt like at the time that was a very important thing. You can go pick apart somebody all you want. It is a traditional talking point to attack Republicans, to call them racist. But when you look at the things that he wants for this country, he wants every person to be successful. He wants Black Americans to be successful, Hispanic Americans to be successful, women to be successful. And he worked that way when he was in the White House. And whether you want to talk about actually funding in perpetuity historically Black colleges and universities, whether you want to talk about the First Step Act that allowed 30,000 nonviolent felons to be released from prison, who the 1994 crime bill actually put in prison, these are things that really have, I feel like, spoken to a lot of people.
Yeah, this has to be one of the biggest spins in the media, probably in history, how they turned someone who was so loved, but when they ran as a Republican for president, they all turned on him, of course. And obviously, he's not one to back down. So, of course, it also plays a factor. But here's the deal. If you were to look at the totality of his life, you wouldn't say that he's a racist. The racist rhetoric only comes from the Trump deranged media, but not actually from concrete evidence or videotapes. And the Central Park Five is not a racist move or action, okay? And one more thing, if we really want to say that somebody is racist in today's political arena, I think one of the people that clearly is closest to that is Sleepy Joe Biden. I mean, this guy passed legislation targeting Black people. Okay, we know how he spoke to Clarence Thomas when he was trying to be confirmed, right, as the Supreme Court justice. I mean, come on. I mean, there's actually video footage. All right. There's no video footage of Trump being racist. There just isn't. Okay, so now we're on to the second thing that they always accuse Trump of doing, that he's a threat to democracy because of January 6th and that he's erratic and we can't trust him with the nuclear codes. She shut that down too. Watch.
And, you know, people gave him you remember before, when he was running in 2016, they were like, we can't give this guy the nuclear codes.
I agree with that, though. Even now to this point.
He was the only person, Charlamagne, not to get us into a new war. He was the one who got us the Abraham Accords, peace agreements that people said were impossible in the Middle East. So why are you concerned about Donald Trump with the nuclear codes?
Did you see what he did on January 6th?
What did he do?
He got a little bit upset.
What did he do on January 6th?
He got a little bit upset and used his words.
What words did he say, though?
The words that you said earlier.
Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
And then what happened after that?
So how were his words actually contributing to that?
Because I think that for me, him being able to just push a button, hypothetically speaking, it's a little bit scary because we've seen he gets a little bit erratic when he wants to.
Well, nothing happened for 4 years when he was in the White House. And in fact, we had a peaceful world. We had a stable world. We had world leaders who were coming to the table to talk about issues like Kim Jong-un of North Korea, by the way.
I mean, it's just common sense, right? It's just facts. Now, before I get into all that, if you're getting value from this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you want to support us further, you can go to the link in the description below, grab yourself a t-shirt or sweater like the one I'm wearing here, or you could buy us a cup of coffee. Now, the whole January 6th thing, they only want to tell one side of the story. And that's what they've done every step of the way. They don't want to talk about that there were obviously undercover FBI agents there. They don't want to talk about how the Capitol Police denied additional support. They don't want to talk about the National Guard request was denied. You know, at the end of the day, they don't want to tell the full story, because if they did that, clearly it would poke a hole in their argument against Trump as being a threat to democracy, which he isn't. We don't live in a democracy. That's one.
But it wasn't a peaceful transfer of power. And he did lead an insurrection in this country. And I know you keep saying the thing about the peace and patriotic part, but he also
offered National Guard troops to Nancy Pelosi. She didn't want to take it. Look, here's what I can tell you.
But he also said we fight like hell.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
And if you don't fight like hell,
Charlemagne,
you're not going to have a country anymore.
Every politician, when you go out on the stump,
even after he got shot at, which was terrible, first thing he did when he stood up was say, fight, 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 fight who?
He wants to keep fighting for this country.
And now we're on to the third biggest claim against Trump. It's funny how this is all lined up perfectly. The third one is the whole Russia hoax, right? They all think that Trump and Putin are best friends, and Trump colluded with Russia in order to steal the 2016 election. It's funny how I said the word steal, right? Because there's a lot of people who still believe that. But, when Trump brings up 2020, he's wrong. Okay. But of course, they bring up the whole Russia thing. And once again, she provides common sense.
Donald Trump is the only person who I believe they know in Washington, D.C., they can't control. And that's a very scary prospect to them. Because
but is he controlled by Russia, though?
Are you kidding me?
I'm just asking. I'm asking a question. Is he controlled by Putin?
Are you really? We couldn't have colluded with
like that,
we couldn't have colluded with Iowa in 2016, let alone Russia. Okay. And by the way, you want to know who did collude with Russia? It was Hillary Clinton and the DNC, and that was proven. They had the Steele dossier. They paid money to get Oppo research and make up stuff about Donald Trump. And guess what happened to them for trying to interfere in an election? You want to talk about the 34 felony counts via Alvin Bragg in downtown Manhattan? That was all about election interference. Hillary Clinton and the DNC admitted to doing this, and they got charged $83,000. Does that seem fair to anybody here? That's outrageous, and it's ridiculous, and every single person knows it. So does Donald Trump have anything to do with Russia? No, you know what he wants to do with Russia? He wants to get along with Russia so that we don't have wars in Europe right now. That's what he would like to see happen.
Yeah, so that's not something that gets talked about. Hillary Clinton goes around the media threatening to censor, right, people's First Amendment of free speech, trying to promote the idea of getting rid of these social media platforms or having the government have more control over them. But all this time, she was already punished for actually colluding with Russia. But the media doesn't want to talk about that. So again, that's why the media's trust has hit an all-time low. Part of the big reason why so many people love or hate Trump is because we know he cannot be controlled. Now, if you're establishment and you have, elites and donors in your pocket, right, supporting your campaign, you don't like that idea. If you're a person who gets rich off the military complex, you don't like Trump, okay? The bottom line is Trump is not supposed to be in Washington. He should be running his businesses, traveling around the world, living a great life.
I mean, I think if you look back at Donald Trump's history, he last night we were at the Al Smith dinner, and he was right there next to Chuck Schumer, and he said to Chuck Schumer, who's obviously a Democrat senator, he said, I gave Chuck his first check ever when he was running for like assemblyman or something. So yeah,
That's why Chuck was laughing so hard. Remember we asked why Chuck was laughing so hard? Chuck was laughing, boy.
I don't be liking the optics of that. Only reason I say I don't like the optics of that is because when you hear people like Chuck Schumer say things like Trump is a threat to democracy, but then you're sitting next to him yucking it up. Why would you be yucking it up with somebody who you consider a threat to democracy?
Well, you have to ask yourself that question, don't you? Maybe it's all scare tactics. Maybe it's a lot of fear mongering. Charlemagne, what I can tell you is I know Donald Trump. I have known him for 16 years, and Chuck Schumer's known him a lot longer than I have. And I think he knows full well he's not a threat to democracy. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Look at what he did when he was in the White House. Like, there was never any threat to democracy when he was in the White House.
Well, there was an attempted coup of the country.
Well, that you can argue that a lot of different ways. Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard is not an attempted coup. What was a coup was when they replaced Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, who was not elected by anyone to run for president. There are 14 million people who voted for Joe Biden to be the nominee for the Democrat Party. And if you want to talk about a real threat to democracy, I would argue that.
They don't like the fact that someone from the business world who never ran for office before became the president. There's only so much you could do for people who have already made up their mind that they hate him. Doesn't matter. They want to believe everything the media says, knowing damn well that the media lies. The Breakfast Club is no different. That's who they are. They have bought into the propaganda that Trump is a bad person, but I guarantee none of those people in the room besides Lara Trump has actually had lunch with Trump and actually got to know him. But I think the way she handled herself probably set the whole mood and the tone of the conversation. And so that's how I see it. And I want to know how you see it. Now, remember, we were talking about in this video how Trump is a threat to the establishment, right? Well, I just did a video talking about the one mistake that Kamala Harris has made that will lose her this election. And if you want to check that out, because it's about Trump versus the establishment, you can click on that video because it's coming up right now.